Sergeant Gordon F. Ward, United States Marine Corps, World War II. I had the great honor and privilege of meeting Gordon Ward in Abingdon, Maryland. It was November 29th, 2007. It was his 83rd birthday. He passed away in 2011 at the age of 87. Gordon served with the Fighting Fourth, the 4th Marine Division on Iwo Jima, folks. And what a story he tells. He was a sergeant, front lines of battle. He tells it through his eyes and ears, and just one of these great historic stories. Folks, this is history. This is, Voices of History is a good title. This is so much history here. I didn't get to know Gordon too well. He did come to the GI Film Festival when we premiered my Vietnam film. I was in Washington, D.C. I was screening my film, Vietnam Remembered. Gordon was one of the veterans that came to that, and I have a picture of him at the end of this video, at the end of his story. You'll see a picture of me and him and Jim Thompson at the GI Film Festival. Just a great time that was. But Gordon, I miss Gordon. He enlisted into the Marine Corps at 19 years of age. It was 1941, and he just served valiantly, really. I wonder if he received a medal. He probably did. He didn't tell me, but he's one of my heroes of World War II, and he tells a great story of Iwo Jima. So, folks, I want to thank Chet Howard. You've heard Chet's name before. Chet is a supporter of my work. Chet, thank you for making it possible for others to learn about World War II, the Battle of Iwo Jima, the bloodiest battle the Marines fought, and just supporting my work, Chet. I love you, brother. Thank you. Thank you for supporting our country and our veterans and just being there for me. It means a lot. God bless you. Folks, I'd like to encourage you to get involved with this project too. If you'd like to donate to my work, there's information in the comment section of the video on my website, larrycapetto.com, or you can email me. And if you'd like to sponsor a story like Chet has sponsored, there's information in the video description. And I'd like to spend more time talking about that, but I think there's a dedicated group out there that is helping me, and I appreciate that. And a lot of people are taking advantage of that, not in a bad way, but they're partaking in the fruit of the labor of this work through the support of the people that are helping me continue my work on this video channel and on my radio station, Voices of History Radio. And thank you. I'm so grateful, so thankful for you. So Chet, again, thank you, sir. Okay, folks, if you'd like to subscribe to this channel, I would be greatly appreciated. We are up to about 51,000 subscribers. I don't look at that as much, but I know there's a dedicated group out there. I wish we had 151,000 or a million subscribers. Maybe in time that will happen. But it's just a blessing to be able to share these stories around the world. My radio station, 50 countries have tuned into Voices of History Radio. You can download the apps free on either app store. Voices of History Radio, it's a free app. And it's just a great way to supplement this channel. If you're a student of history, these stories are valuable. And we're in a day now, folks, we're fighting for the same freedoms in our own country that our veterans fought for in foreign soil. So it's important that we get these stories out there. Very important. The history of what these veterans did, their legacy, and in timeless stories here. And I'm so happy that I can share these. So going to Arizona in January, if you'd like to help support that effort, just get a hold of me. I'm going to interview Vietnam veterans down there. It'll be 21 years since I've been there. I started with the World War II veterans down there 21 years ago, and now the Vietnam veterans are about the same age as the World War II veterans were. I've done a lot of Korean War interviews. I have a featured film on this channel, Korea, the Forgotten War, and there's not many of them around either, folks. So heaven's full of these heroes. It's going to be a great reunion up there. So thank you for watching, listening, subscribing to this channel, and I'll talk to you again. God bless you.
Just don't look at the camera. Look at you.
Yeah, if you happen to look over it, it's fine. But you can see me okay.
Yeah, I was also interviewed by the Marine Corps archives. They got a sort of a 45-minute interview with me about why I got in the Marine Corps, why I joined. I joined before World War II started.
Sure.
All that, they got all that recorded.
Well, good. That's valuable.
I got.
Well, let's just go ahead and talk a little bit about Iwo Jima. How old are you now?
Today is my birthday.
Uh-huh.
And today I am 83 years old.
So when you went to Iwo Jima, how old were you?
I went to Iwo Jima, I was 19.
First time in combat?
No, I'd been in combat before, primarily in the Marshall Islands,
Okay.
where I had my first thing. I jumped off from one of those alligator tractors, went forward about 50 feet, and lo and behold, up pops a Jap out of a hole, and I saw him before he saw me, and I'm here and he's not. So that was my first taste of battle, but it was kind of surprising because we had left the United States and gone straight into combat. We were the first troops to ever do that from the West Coast, from San Diego area all the way over to the Marshall Islands, which is almost a month on a ship. And I was so anxious to get off that ship. But then within 3 minutes, I run into one of the enemy. But it was not a ferocious battle. It was, sometimes we refer to the Battle of the Marshall Islands, especially Kwajalein, or not Kwajalein, but Roy Namur Atoll. We refer to it as a Sunday school picnic because we only had 6 or 7 or something like that percentage of people got killed or wounded. And of course, some of our battles later on, Saipan, Tinian, and Iwo Jima, we had 30, 40, and 50% of the people wounded or killed. So we don't talk much about the battle in the Marshall Islands.
Sure. Well, Gordon, you were 19 years old when you went to Iwo Jima.
Yes.
What can you tell me about the island of Iwo Jima, and what did you know about Iwo Jima before you landed?
Well, we were told when we were in our rest camp in the island of Maui, in the Hawaiian Islands, we were told that we were going to go into combat again because rumors had been going around that we had lost so many people in Saipan and Tinian that we were going to go back for a period of time back to the United States, and everyone was getting their hopes up. But one of our regimental commanders called us at a meeting and told us, look, you guys, you're not going back to the States. We're already scheduled to go into an island, he says, which is going to be far worse than any of the other battles we've been in. He said, all I want you to do is just think that you're already dead and fight like demons. And as I recall, he was killed on Iwo. And of course, we didn't know the name of the island. It couldn't be told. It was supposed to be secret, although many people had a pretty good idea. But we were told that it was going to be a tough battle, and they told us right, it was.
So tell me about the night before the landing on Iwo. Where were you? Were you on board a ship? And what were your thoughts?
Oh, I tell you, some of the fellows that seemed like could sleep most anywhere. I've always had a horrible time sleeping. And that night before, I don't believe I slept one wink, realizing, of course, what might happen the following day. But I was definitely worried, of course. We all were. But it's surprising how the fellows kept their humor up, regardless. But I know I was very apprehensive. I believe I tried to sleep, but I couldn't sleep. I knew I needed to sleep because we were going to be in battle the next day. But you look around there and you hear some fellow right beside you snoring like nothing was ever going to happen. I was very envious of those people that could do that. But it's very scary. It really is. I don't know if there's any other word to say about it. It's very scary when you know here you are and feeling good, feeling healthy, feeling young, and one day and the next day you may be blown apart, especially if you've seen it happen before. And that's the whole scary thing about it. But you have to overcome your fears if you're in combat. And you have to accept things as they are. After all, that was our job. That's what we had to do. And there was no getting out of it that I know of.
What Marine Division were you with?
I was with the 4th Marine Division.
The Fighting 4th?
The Fighting 4th.
So what was your rank and your MOS? What job did you have?
Well, we didn't use that word MOS then, I believe, but I was a rifleman primarily. That's the riflemen, of course, are the front line boys. They're the ones that first make contact with the enemy. So that even puts you in a higher location where you might get either wounded or killed.
Are you a PFC at the time?
No, I was a corporal.
Okay.
I've been in the Marine Corps since 1941. And I hadn't gotten a tremendous number of promotions because I was a skinny little guy, about 122 pounds. And when some of the bigger guys that were old men around 23, 24 years of age, when they joined the Marine Corps after Pearl Harbor, they were tougher than me and rougher than me. They got promotions a lot faster than I did. But for some reason, I wasn't extremely interested in promotions. I was just interested in doing my job, and I sort of accepted things the way they were.
Tell me about the morning of the landing, when you got up, if you had a last meal, and then you're right into shore on an Amtrak or on a Higgins boat.
Well, that riding ashore on that, in our case, it was a alligator tractor, an Amtrak. We were in the first wave on the landing on Iwo Jima. We were in the first wave on all the landings, as a matter of fact. That's where they usually put riflemen, in the first waves. And you never know what you're going to see when you hit that island, whether you're going to be rushed with Japanese running up there with their rifles and bayonets or whatever. But we could look over and see the shelling that was taking place from the Navy warships were firing into the island, laying down a fantastic barrage on Iwo. And everybody sort of thought that that would kill off just about 2/3 or more of all the Japanese that would meet us on the beach. But the truth is, the Japanese were not on the beach. They were down in their dugouts, and they weren't even being hit by these shells. I can remember one guy who hadn't been in combat before, just jokingly turned around and shook his fist at the battleships behind us and yelled, "Knock it off, you guys. Leave some of those bastards for us to kill." And I remember somebody said, "Hey, shut your mouth. I don't care if they get all of them, before we get there." And as I've told this story before, I think I was right in sight of the island, right off for maybe 400 or 500 feet in front of me. When the alligator tractor was bouncing around, I stepped on a fellow's toe. And he got angry and pulled back his fists, was going to punch me in the nose. And I held my hand up and stopped him. I said, "Now, wait a minute. Right there's the island right in front of us. Take it out on the Japanese." And he turned around and he was just all worked up, And but that's the way it is going in. Some people are right on pins and needles, and others are sitting there praying. But I think in the one I was in, the fellows were joking quite a bit on the way in.
Well, did you guys get your heads down below the gunwales, or were you looking up like this, or what were you
Oh,
doing?
we were supposed to keep our heads down. Of course, we were standing up in those alligator tractors, most of them. We tried to keep our heads down. But we got curious and stuck our head up every once in a while to see what we could see on the shore. But we were told to keep our heads down, of course.
Sure.
But and when we hit the beach on Ewell, it was quite surprising. The alligator tractor pulled up right up on the beach about 40 or 50 feet. And it was right next door to a Japanese vessel that had been a ship, that is, that had been beached. And this Japanese vessel had been all shot up with holes through a smokestack it had on it. It was a transport of some type. It wasn't a warship. And when I hadn't been on the beach very long, and I turned around, because there was no one right in front of us at that moment, as I say, the Japanese were staying back, waiting for us to get in before they actually attacked us. Although they were landing mortar shells here and there all over the place and killing and wounding Marines. The heavy fire hadn't yet come. And I turned around and looked back at that ship, and there was holes through the stack. And I could see through the holes daylight, but there was something moving in the stack. And I turned around with my M1 rifle and emptied out a clip. And the guy beside me, the man beside me, Joe Javorcik, yelled at me, "Ward, what are you shooting at?" He said, "The enemy's up there, not back there." I said, "Joe, something moved in that stack." And I found out since then that there was an observer up in that stack, and he was found strapped in up there, bringing fire down on us on the beach. So even though I didn't last long on the Battle of Iwo Jima, I'm glad I contributed somewhat to doing what I was expected to do.
How long did you last?
I didn't last long. That's the whole thing about Iwo Jima.
Several days, or?
I was just there 24 hours. It was the roughest day of my life, the longest day of my life. I guess it felt more like a month, although it was one day. But all kinds of things happened during that day. After that, what I just told you about shooting that Jap up in the stack, we moved forward a little bit behind one of the last sand dune. There was 2 sand dunes on Iwo on the beach. And on the second one, and the Japanese let all hell loose on us. We kind of crowded in. We were crowding up on the beach a little then. We hadn't moved too far forward. And I can remember distinctly a man on my right side practically touching me and talking to me 1 minute, and the next minute his innards are all over me. And the Javorcik, the one I told you was on my left-hand side, I saw him shaking and looked over and saw a big piece of metal sticking out of his jaw, and I reached over and pulled it out of his jaw, and then he snapped to. And he asked me what happened. I said, "You got hit, Joe. If I were you, I'd get on one of those landing crafts coming in and go back to the ship. You can't fight like that. You're bleeding. You'll bleed to death." So he took my word and he says, "Well, come with me." I said, "Yeah, I wish I could go with you, but I'm not wounded. I can't go with you. If I wouldn't even, I'd love to go, but I'm not going to go." Well, he got up and left back in to go into to get taken care of. I understand. I met him a number of years after that, and he told me that he had been on the ship only about 2 or 3 days, and he'd been given medical treatment, of course, for that wound. He said, but an officer came into the sick bay and said, "Hey, your buddies are catching hell on the beach. Anybody in this sick bay that can carry a rifle, you got to go back in." He said some of the guys crawled out of their bunks trying to go back into the beach. None of them said, "I'm not going back in again," or "I won't go back in." Matter of fact, they had to stop some of them and say, hey, you can't even walk. You can't go back in. But Joe said, he said, all I had to do, he said, I couldn't, with my helmet, I couldn't tie the strap under my chin because it hurt so badly. But he said going back in, the thing that bothered him was he looked up and saw a transport, and there was a 3rd Marine Division that came in as reserves. Of course, they caught hell later also. But the 3rd Marine Division waved at them. And he said they were all well dressed, looked clean and everything else. He said, here we were dirty, bloody, and we were going back into combat when they got fresh troops out here. Well, I guess the reason for that is they wanted to keep one outfit intact as long as they could. But, and many times, of course, fighting people got wounded and never reported their wounds if they were small enough.
So tell me this now, when you landed, you went in the first wave.
I went in the first wave.
Well, I heard that the first few waves got on the beach and then the Japanese opened up.
Yes.
Is that what happened?
Yes, I mentioned that, I think.
Yeah, but tell me about that initial landing, maybe you climbed up a terrace, wherever you were, and then when the barrage opened up. Tell me about all that.
Well, as I said before there, we'd been there, I think, about, it's hard to tell the time. I think about 45 minutes maybe. 30 minutes or 45 minutes. And we began to think for a while it wasn't going to be a rough battle after all, because we couldn't see the Japanese, at all. And then when they started, that's when I talked about the man that was right next to me got blown up. That's when they let up with a terrific barrage of mortar shells. It was almost like rain coming down. I mean, every place you look, you see a puff of black smoke. Not the fire bombs that they show in the movies, but the black smoke from the dust from a mortar shell. And of course, sometimes you'd see in that smoke and dust and everything going up in the air, you'd see a human being flying through the air. And men screaming, one thing or another, guys running around with an arm blowing off or a leg blowing off. But they really let loose with a tremendous barrage there definitely after the first hour. And they kept it up. And we lost, I think it's the casualty list was somewhere around 3,000, 2,000 to 3,000 anyhow, killed that first night on the beach. Now, and a number wounded. Now that's pretty heavy casualties in one day of fighting. But the battle was rough all the way through. I was very fortunate in many ways that I got wounded when I did. I got wounded the next morning, about 3 o'clock in the morning, and that was an experience in itself.
Tell me about it.
Well, I was hoping to get some sleep because I was pooped out. And right to the state of fatigue. It was cold. It was about 50 degrees cold. And we were shaking because we weren't properly dressed. And it was dark, of course, and the only light we had were from what they call star shells, which the destroyers, I believe, mostly shoot them up, and they light up like Roman candles up in the air and light up the beach. They set them off so that we could see the Japanese if they were coming after us with a banzai charge. But it also would light us up so the Japanese could see us, and they would take a lot of shots in when they used them for their advantage as much as we did for ours. But that's these star shells I'm talking about. But I was laying there, and of course the shells, as I say, were constantly falling, and screams were not uncommon at all. And the man next to me, you kind of paired up. You felt a little better if you had somebody there you could talk to. We paired up in the foxholes. And the guy next to me, one hit real close by, maybe 7 or 8 feet. And the concussion, of course, we felt that. But we didn't get hit by that shell. and we kind of said, by gosh, that one was close. But the next one, I said, yeah, maybe, but I hope they don't get any closer. And about that time, a shell hit, I don't think it was more than 3 or 4 feet from me on my right side, and blew my leg. I thought it blew it off, but it was a horrible pain, something that I had never experienced before or have experienced since then. But it was a horrible pain, and of course, my first thought was for a corpsman to help me, so I called for a corpsman. I was told afterwards I should not have called for a corpsman, being that close to the front lines, and that's probably true. But with that pain and all, you don't always think the way you should. But the corpsman came over in the darkness, and he got within about, I'd say 7 or 8 feet or 10 feet from me, and said, "Where are you?" And when I raised my hand up, trying to get his attention, and yelled at him, a shell hit him, direct him, blew him, pieces of them at least, all over me and my friend that was next to me. He was wounded also, but not as badly as me, I guess. At least he could walk. And so my friend there told me, he said, "Look, we can't stay here now. We're out of action. Let's get out of here. Let's move back." So we started crawling, and I crawled until my elbows were raw almost from using my elbows to crawl. And suddenly somebody picked me up and put me on a stretcher. And they carried the stretcher a short distance, and a shell hit in front of him and killed a man carrying the stretcher. As if that should be enough right there, sooner or later somebody else picked up the stretcher and carried it down to the beach and dumped me off on the beach. Well, the beach, as I recall, and I could still see a little, especially with the lights from the star shells, that the beach was loaded with wounded and dying people, and some dead. Stretched up and down the beach, waiting for morning to arrive. This is 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, waiting for morning to arrive so they could be evacuated. And as I was laying there, another corpsman came over and pulled my leg down, straightened it out because the bones were sticking out. And he put a shot of morphine in me, which was fantastic. Took away that horrible pain. And he put a tourniquet on my leg, which I know saved my life because I was bleeding pretty badly. I'd been bleeding for a couple hours by that time and probably had very little blood left in my system. But he was putting the tourniquet on. He was over me when a shell hit there and killed him right on top of me. And I remember after he fell on me, I tried to move him off, but I didn't have the strength. It seemed like all the strength had left my body, I guess from the loss of blood. And I passed out. And as I passed out, I said goodbye. I thought I was dying. I said goodbye to my mother, goodbye to my father, and goodbye to my girlfriend that I had, that I wanted to marry. I figured I'm going to go someplace, maybe to heaven, I hope. But I woke up though when there was came conscious, I should say. And when somebody said, "Hey, there's one under there, he's alive, I think." And I tried to utter, "Yeah, I'm alive," you know. Somebody grabbed my leg and pulled me out from under the dead corpsman and put me on a landing craft to take me, it was a Higgins boat this time, to take me to a ship any ship, I guess, that's out there that would receive wounded people. And the landing craft was hit by machine gun bullets or something from the Japanese. They put holes in it, and water was coming in on the bottom of the boat. And I remember I was laying face down on that boat, that Higgins boat, and it started to swallow that water. And I wanted to pull my head up out of the water and had no strength. Here again, I thought, my gosh, here I got off Ewell, I'm off the island, going out to a ship, and now I'm going to drown. But lo and behold, somebody grabbed me under the chin and pulled my head up out of the water. I glanced over, and there was a Marine there that had one side of his face all covered up, I think an eye blown out or something, and the other eye, he's still open. He saw what was happening to me, and he held my head up out of the water until he got alongside the ship. So I feel very fortunate to have had such wonderful people, brave people, and I'm here, but I feel awful sad the fact that most of them are not here. And I feel kind of bad about that. I feel bad especially about those two corpsmen. If I hadn't yelled for that one corpsman, possibly he'd still be alive. I don't know, but I sort of doubt that because the shell that hit him had to be being put in the tube before I screamed for a corpsman.
Sure.
So, and a corpsman on the beach just happened to be, he was in that position over me when the shell hit, and he got killed there. So, and the fellow carrying the stretcher, the same thing. But if anybody is very thankful, it's me.
Well, how do you survive something like that as a 19-year-old? I mean, you've been in combat before, but I'm assuming Ewell was worse than the Marshalls or whatever.
Oh, much.
But how do you? Is it your training that gets you through it? Are you praying, or do you? I mean, how do you get through that mentally? How do you process that?
Well, you know, it's a strange thing. I joined the Marine Corps in June of 1941 because I wasn't like most high school kids in many ways. I was interested with what Adolf Hitler was doing over in Europe. And I was a strong believer that we should, when England got into it with Adolf Hitler stopping him in 1939, even though I was 15 at the time, 15 years old, I thought we should have been over there helping England. We didn't do very much at the beginning. You know, we were sort of pacifists over here or isolationists. We thought a lot of people here thought that war is not our war, and we're not going to get into it. But I think Roosevelt knew sooner or later we would be into it. Excuse me. So when I hit 17, I dropped out of high school and rushed down and joined the Marine Corps. And this was 6 months before Pearl Harbor. I just wanted to get in uniform. I wanted to go over and shoot Adolf Hitler. But I never got to shoot against the Germans because the Marines all went in the Pacific. They didn't go in into the European theater at all. After I got out of boot camp, I was transferred down to Guantanamo Bay, Cuba. Guantanamo Bay, of course, there was no combat action taking place down there, although whenever you're in the Marine Corps, you're constantly training. And we knew we wouldn't be there forever, and I was thinking that maybe this war is going to be over and I won't get a chance to get into it, because I was down in Guantanamo Bay the first year and a half of the war. But finally they caught up with me, and I was glad, I guess, that they did, and sent me to the West Coast to join the 4th Marine Division, which was slated to go into combat. And I felt right along that I joined this man's outfit to fight, and that's what I have to do. As skinny and 122 pounds or so, 125 pounds, but I figured I could still fight, and I wanted to be part of it. So I kind of asked for combat, you might say.
So when you were wounded, I'm sorry, what happened? Was it a shell, a mortar round that got your leg? Or
Yes, it was. I believe it had to be a mortar round. They were dropping them in there. The Japanese use a tremendous number of mortars. They use heavier artillery also, of course, but I think what hit me was a mortar. They can do a lot. You can do a lot of destruction with a mortar.
So the shrapnel came out and hit you in the leg? Is that what happened?
The shrapnel came out and it actually it shortened my leg. Today I have to wear an orthopedic shoe that builds up my leg 2 inches. I joke about it a little bit and say the Japanese thought my leg was too long, so they shortened it for me, and now I'm a ridge runner. But it hasn't bothered me that much, and the way I feel about the wounds, I don't pity myself one bit. That I consider myself extremely lucky, very, very fortunate. And I was treated right in the hospitals. I was treated right when I got out of the Marine Corps. I didn't want to get out, that's the only thing, but I was sort of ushered out. They wouldn't keep you in the Corps if you had injuries like mine where I'd have to wear a special shoe and all, but today I think it's different, but back then they didn't. And besides, we'd had 450,000 Marines in the Marine Corps during World War II, and the war was over, and we didn't need them any longer, after the war was over. So they were trying to reduce the Marine Corps as fast as they could down to 100,000 or so, or less. I forget the number they went down to, quite low, before the next battle, which was 5 years later in Korea. But I didn't want to get out, but they did me a favor there again. I got out and took advantage of the GI Bill, went to college, went to Syracuse University, and ended up going down to the University of Miami, Florida, ended up working for the government and obtained the title of safety engineer. So, and there again, the government helped me out, I think, or I had to help myself out too, of course, but I don't, well, the way I feel about it, the government doesn't owe me anything. I still owe the government. If there's some way I can be beneficial in any way at all to help out my government, I will.
So you called the day, the February 19th, the longest day for you.
It was certainly the longest day for me.
Do you find yourself ever thinking back about that, Gordon, or is it...
Oh, I think about it all the time. I don't know why, but I do. It's kind of strange. I've talked to a lot of people who said they don't even want to think about it, but I think somehow in my mind I've convinced myself that wasn't me. That was this guy I read about in a book. I sympathized with him, but thank God it wasn't me. Something of that sort. It's hard to explain. But I don't have any problem talking about it at all. Now at first, for the first couple months after the war, I had horrible nightmares. If a car would backfire, which was quite common back in the 40s, I would fall flat on the street, thinking it was a shell going off. But that wore off. I understand with some people it didn't, but with me it did. And I might, if I hear one now, I might jump like anybody, but no, not because of the war. I don't believe it. still has that effect upon me. Although I can't enjoy going to 4th of July fireworks. They don't frighten me. They don't do anything to me. But I just get no pleasure. My family goes all the time. I stay home. But if I happen to be in a hotel or someplace and they got fireworks, I'll go out and look at them, and I don't get horrified. But I just don't take any pleasure in watching fireworks.
Although
I think it has something to do with the war.
But real combat is a lot worse than fireworks.
Oh, of course.
But it reminds you of that.
Yeah, I suppose that's what it does. The bang, 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 and constant pounding of mortar shells every hour, during the hour, no let up. Star shells going off, and they make a bang up in the air when they go off.
Did you lose any friends you know of that first day?
Oh gosh, did I ever?
Who do you remember? Who comes to mind? What happened to them?
Well, they're blown up or killed. My company, B Company, 1st Battalion, 25th Marines, we were right in we weren't up near Mount Suribachi, which you get more publicity about Mount Suribachi, of course, because of the flag being raised on Mount Suribachi. But we were catching fire also up on the beach, about a half a mile up from Mount Suribachi. We were catching as much fire as those around Mount Suribachi. And yes, I can, matter of fact, I understand, somebody told me, of course I lost contact with my company because I was so badly wounded myself. I was sort of in and out of consciousness for 3 days or so. The thing that really pulled me through, I think, was when I was on the ship on the 5th day, and this is where I started to remember again after being dragged on the ship, and the doctor told me I thought he was going to lose my leg, but he told me I wouldn't, and I woke up and found myself in a body cast with my toes sticking out on both sides, and I think that was the first time I cried. I was so thankful to see I still had my leg, although I had already accepted the fact that I might not have it. And I was determined then, well, I'll do something, like I'll become an artist. I had artistic values, I think, at the time. I could draw portraits pretty good and do a pretty good job at it. Matter of fact, I was scheduled to go in Syracuse University in the art class, but I never took up art. But after that, but where were we?
Well, I was just asking you about the longest day, and you're telling me about being on Evo and things like that. My thoughts were, in the fire. A lot happened that first day. I mean,
that day was my whole life almost right there in that one day. In many ways, although some better things have happened. I married a girl I wanted to marry and all that. She's sitting right out there.
Let me ask you something. We'll maybe come back to Iwo, but you mentioned going to the Iwo Jima Memorial once a week. Tell me why you do that.
Well, I do it for 2 reasons. Now, some people may refer to it as grandstanding. You've heard that experience. Maybe there is a little grandstanding in there. It makes me feel good, and I don't do any harm. I tell people actual facts about that. I don't have to tell them anything that's not true. And I help educate the people. And I think in this country today, we sadly need to have people better educated about our history, and especially about the wars that put us where we are today. There's so many people that don't appreciate that. When they come over there to the monument, and I talk to them, and many of them ask me for my address, I give it to them. Oh, I don't expect anything from them, but I gotten letter after letter after letter at home, thanking me for making their visit to Washington, D.C., an eventful because of the fact that I was there to talk to them about Iwo Jima. Some of them, I don't know if they went overboard with it or not, but told me that was one of their most eventful things that happened to them in Washington. To be able to talk to somebody that was on Iwo Jima. And of course, there again, your people that go to these war memorials and are usually, I feel, are more patriotic type Americans. They're not the general run of the mill of the people that you see are just on the street somewheres. There are people that are actually interested in knowing more about our country.
Well, that brings to mind Doug and Nikki from the UK. Tell me about meeting them. You met them at the memorial?
Who?
Doug and Nikki.
Yes. As a matter of fact, they're wonderful people. They're from England, and I've gotten letters from England. I've gotten letters from Australia. I've gotten letters from other countries. I'm trying not to accumulate stuff like that anymore. I'm throwing a lot of it away because I'm winding down, and I want to get rid of a lot of stuff before somebody else does it for me, when the day comes. But I'm always glad to know that I've did some service, and I talk to school groups, especially school groups. It's amazing how you hear so much about 7th and 8th graders, how bad students they are and all. But I've talked to groups over there where every eye was right on me when I talked to them. And these young kids, I talk to them at their level. I don't get into the real gore. Sorry about that. I don't go into the real gory stuff with them. I try to keep it, but I always have a 7th or 8th grader in a group that'll look up at me, a boy usually, will look up and say, "Sir, did you shoot anybody over there?" And he's waiting for my answer. I said, "Well, son, that's what we were sent there for." I said, it was either we had to shoot them or they'd shoot us, and that's what wars are all about. Not very nice. And I say, but, I said, for me, it would be a lot more pleasurable if I could see a man standing up there on the beach and get out of a boat or a tractor or something and walk over and shake hands with him and sit down and have a cup of coffee with him. I said, I'd enjoy that much better than shooting him. And these little kids say, "Oh, gee whiz," He's kind of disappointed. He doesn't want to hear that kind of, they're children. But the teachers thank me for talking to them that way because.
Yeah, I go into schools too, and I do a presentation, and I'll take a veteran with me. So if I come back here, I'd like to, maybe you can go with me to a school, if you'd be interested in that.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've gone to a couple schools.
Yeah, it's important that they learn, like you said.
I ad lib, but I don't have any canned speech.
I don't either.
I have some pictures I show them, and that would show them that we were not war pictures or combat pictures, but pictures show them that we were the same. We were young once, just like they are, and
that's what I do too.
Yeah.
The pictures. That's why I wanted a picture of you, is because I do the same thing. So.
And I tell the people over there, I tell the people, I say, I add it all up, and I say, this, I have a lot to be thankful for. This is a wonder. I said, with all our faults that we have, and we do have some, but this is the most wonderful country in the world to live in and to fight for. And they sometimes give me a hand for saying that, I mean, it's not for me. It's and so many of them will come up to me, and I've gotten so many kisses. I even had Miss America came over there about in the summertime, and she gave me a kiss on the cheek, and her follow up. What do you call the number 2?
Yeah.
Her
runner-up. Runner-up.
Runner-up. But that's okay. I mean, it makes me feel good,
Yeah, you bet it does. And I've had that happen with veterans I've been around too. With that in mind, Gordon, being a World War II veteran, tell me what freedom means to you and the price of freedom.
Well, I think, like a lot of people, that freedom doesn't come easy. We have to win our freedom. We have to fight for it. We have to keep it. There is always somebody out there that wants to destroy us. We had it when Adolf Hitler came in. He wanted to conquer the world. And Tojo wanted to conquer the Pacific side. I don't know what, probably those two sides, if they'd won out, probably would have fought each other to see which one of them is going to be the ruler if it continued. Now we got many countries in the world that want to destroy us again. My feelings are mostly it's because of jealousies, because they see us live so well over here in compared to them, compared to their way of life. They see that we have the freedoms that we have and the things that we enjoy that they can't possibly enjoy in their countries. They either want to come here and have that joy with us, or they want to hate us. It's either one of the two. And it's terrible. We've got several countries in South America now that are anti-American, or at least their leaderships. I don't know about the people in general. We've got this problem with over in the Middle East with so many different countries. And we just have to stay on our toes, I'll tell you. We got to think of ourselves. We got to keep our armed forces strong. And we do have, even today, I've talked extensively to young Marines. Oh, that is another thing. Over at the War Memorial, young Marines come over there. They don't have to spend their day off going over to the War Memorial, but they'll take their girlfriends, wives, families, whatever, over there to visit the Marine Corps War Memorial. And I talk to them, and we have some wonderful people in the armed forces today, devoted people. And I think we got to keep that up. We can't let up on our strength. We have to keep strong. I don't want to see us conquering countries. Of course, I don't know of any American that really wants to do that. But we got to, in order to keep our own posture in the world, we've got to stay strong. And my little bit that I do at the monument over there, which is only a teensy little bit, I think helps a little bit. I hope so.
What does the American flag mean and represent to you?
The American flag to me means a lot. I started to say there earlier that even when thought I was dying, perhaps, when I came out of ether, when they finally put me in a body cast after Ewell, and they rolled me out on the deck of the ship, and one of the first things I saw, one of the ambulatory type patients on the deck of the ship yelled out, "Hey, look, they're putting the flag up on Suribachi." And I looked up there, and in that distance, I saw that flag go up. Once again, big tears rolled down my eyes, because I figured, well, we've won that battle, and it made me feel so good. I think from then on, I started feeling a lot better. Possibly could have saved my life, I don't know. But that much I don't know. But I tell you one thing, even today, if I see somebody burning the American flag, on TV or any other place, and heaven forbid, I hope I'll never see it in person, because I feel like I've got to do something. If I got to rush in there, and even though I am 83 years old, if I rush in somehow and try to defend that flag, I probably would try it. I don't know, because I feel so strong about it. Because it's not the flag. The flag's a piece of cloth when you come down to it. It's what it represents. It represents our country, our freedom, everything, as far as I'm concerned. So it has tremendous value. And I hate this unpatriotic things that we see today, taking refusing to let ROTCs, for instance, on school grounds and things of that sort. That really bugs me.
Me too.
Mm.
Are you proud that you're a World War II veteran?
Yes, I'm definitely proud of it. I wouldn't be here today if I wasn't.
How does it make you feel when people thank you?
Oh, they come up to me quite often. I feel good about it. I feel good about it. I feel they're not just thanking me. They're thanking these guys that I fought with. And I'm just being the one that receives the thanks on their behalf. The same thing as the flag raisers on Iwo Jima. They didn't feel like they were heroes. And probably there were no more heroes than all the other people. 3 of them definitely were, because they went to their death right after the flag was put up. Next day, I think it was. But actually, it's. I think of Spradlin. I think of Scarati. I think of Mann and all these other guys that I joked with and trained with. And they're all dead now. They were killed in action. They didn't even get a chance to live their young adult life. And if I can help in any way at all, I'll do it.
I'm going to ask you to do one more thing, okay? I've asked all the veterans to do this, but when I tell you into the camera where you're seated, could you give me a salute?
Surely.
Right there, don't move. Okay, Gordon, right in the camera. Great. Stay there, okay?
I'm here.